State Transit Committee do a roll call if Crystal, Andy, who?
Cope.
Here.
Lambert.
Here.
Bertram.
Present.
Stenberg.
Present.
Nebel. Erickson.
Here.
Trezak.
Here. We have an oath of office for a new member. Is Andy or Crystal going to present that or issue that?
I can do it, or do you
Or Lisa Nebel, correct pronunciation? Okay.
repeat after me type of thing? I can do it. Can you hear me when I'm out like this, or do I have to be in front of a mic? Can you hear me okay? Lisa, welcome. We've understand that you're not employed yet with these guys back here, so you're welcome to be a TAC member today. But we have this oath of office, and I'm just going to read it if you repeat after me. I, Lisa Nebel, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the U.S., the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Transportation Advisory Committee of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment, so help me God. And if at some point you would sign that, and
Is Lisa's mic on?
pardon?
Is Lisa's mic on? Does anybody? Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Ready for roll call? Oh, we did. I did. I missed. I'm sorry. Thanks for reminding me. I skipped one there. I don't know how I did that. I guess we did a roll call with Lisa before she was actually appointed, but that's okay. We're informal today. Approval of the agenda, if anybody care to make a motion or have any suggested
Moved
changes.
Bertram.
Motion by Bertram, second by Lambert. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read those?
I move to accept Lambert.
I'll second Bertram.
By Bertram. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have minutes. We have financial reports. I hope everybody got a chance to look at these. And who would like to take this, Andy, or are you gonna let Crystal run it? Hello? Flip a coin?
Just turn this on. The financial reports that are included by the Finance Director Hellman are for the period ending 2021 year end, which are the first two pages, and then the first 6 months of 2022. I don't know, maybe it's easier, rather than go through this line by line, does anything strike people as odd or have questions? I think that's what we did last time. And actually, Paul was helpful on a couple of questions. I don't know if Jesse's helpful. We'll find, yeah?
As far as it can be.
All right, that's what I say every day.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may.
You
and
may.
I've just seen this, so I really haven't had time to go over it carefully, but I'm looking at page 2 of 2 in the financial report, and in the first column at the bottom, it would appear to show a, is it $900,200 dollar, or is it $9,200 deficit? Or expenditures over revenue. Can someone speak to that? Yeah, okay.
Pardon?
For 2021, she's wondering what the extra 9,200 of expenditures over the revenue from last year was.
for 9,200.
At the bottom.
Almost the very bottom, isn't it, pretty much?
It's at the bottom.
Right, right.
Yes, the very last line, and as you go all the way across, under available balance, et cetera, it shows a deficit.
And then look at the percentage in that column too of used, I believe is the type item on the column header. That's a percentage.
Well, I guess I'd like to know if there is that deficit, and if it is in that amount, and if it's carried over then to this year, where are we on this year? And, as I say, I've just seen it, so maybe if I looked at the whole thing over for 2 or 3 hours, I'd figured it out.
Sure,
But just
I think I
looking
can,
at it like this, it certainly looks as if there was a fairly substantial deficit. So what happens? Does anybody care? Does the government care? We ought to care. We're some of us are taxpayers anyway.
yes, ma'am.
And, we ought to care.
Yep, I think I can fill you in a little bit here on this one, just looking at it from my perspective on the outside, just looking at it. So the 9,200 would have been as part of the budget, but if you go to the next line over to the right, would have been the actual year-to-date numbers that were both received as well as expended. So overall, the entire transit fund ran a budget plus of over 100,000 throughout the year. So the budget was 9,200 in the deficit, but by the end of the year, there was a surplus.
And, the percent of budget used and the available balance, which would appear to again be a deficit.
That number under used, or the percentage, that final right-hand column, that's what you're talking about, right, Mary?
That is right.
Right, and what's that number? And
At the, under net of revenue and expenditures, it would indicate a 111, I think it's thousand. The way the decimals are, it's 111,943 and 71 cents, it would appear to be a deficit.
So what the number's showing is the difference from the budget, not necessarily a deficit. So going back to the second column, that's where the revenues versus the expenditures, there was a surplus over the year of 100,000. Both revenues and expenditures were both less than originally budgeted. But the expenditures were more or less than the drop in revenue. So ultimately, there was an extra $100,000 rather than a deficit.
This column says amended budget, but this one is the actual year-to-date. So on the budgeted side, we were gonna run short, but on actual, we ran better than we anticipated.
if it's a deficit, that is in a parenthesis, correct?
Balance appears again to be.
The 111,000 or so?
Yeah, no, if we're in the negative, it's in parentheses, is that not correct?
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
It depends on which line you're looking at. So the third column she was referencing, that's just comparing it to the budget, not necessarily to the revenues versus expenditures.
I just don't think numbers, when we're talking about dollars and cents, whether they're city dollars, state dollars, county dollars, or federal dollars, they all come out of the same pockets. And I think
It's the way that the calculate, it's just a goofy calculation because this versus this divided by this and it's, yeah. Because it's comparing.
Year-to-date balance, this is the column I always look at.
It's the important one.
So that's a Connie question.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I don't want to keep this.
Okay,
But if maybe, probably a simple answer.
Yep.
But maybe Chris or Andy can review it and send all of us an email or something.
I'm sure you guys will do that, right?
Right, and Mary, again, there's, I pointed it out over there, the 4 columns. The first column is just the budgeted, it's what we're planning. The second column, this is where we ended the year at, and we ended the year at with $102,000 surplus revenues over expenses. Now, The last two columns, I mean, percent budget used, I don't know how you get a 1,000% number in a percentage budget used. That's a question that I would have to bring to the finance director. I don't know how that software calculated that last column. It just makes, that one doesn't make sense to me either.
That's what I thought too, Andy, so.
Yeah, that, yeah.
I'll be patient.
Yeah, that number, I noticed that too, the very last, and I figured it's gotta be some sort, it made no sense. And that's not in parentheses, that number,
Correct,
right? If it
correct.
was a negative, it would be in parentheses, that
Correct.
percentage.
The percentage is so considerably high because the original budget was 9,200 in the deficit.
Okay, there,
And
that's
how,
why.
and how we ended up with 102,000 in the surplus, it's a huge difference percentage-wise. So it's really tough because you're talking about a percentage of a small amount, so the percentage grows so much more.
So if it was a 9,000 budgeted, like he's saying, and if it was double that, you'd see if it was the same, it'd be 100%. And if it was twice that, it'd be 200. That's why it's at 1,000-some percent, because it's that much more than that $9,000 and some odd number figure there.
It's kind of deceptive, but
It is, it's very, but that is not a deficit, that is a surplus, is what that's showing you.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Would you explain what that available balance, the second to last column, what is that telling us?
that is comparing the budget versus the actual used. So if you look at the revenues, the 64 is telling you that we used 64,000 less, or we received 64,000 less in revenue. But we also, if you go to the expenditures, there's 176,000 that we had less expenditures from the budget. So we ended up saving more money even though we lost some of the anticipated revenue. So bottom line is we saved enough money to end up with a surplus rather than a deficit from the budget.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
And I'm assuming this is a lot from the help we got for the COVID, that we are able to have this little extra money. Am I right? Or if the COVID,
We're able to keep all our
programs,
affairs.
yeah, with the program that the state had regarding COVID, is that what helps giving this picture of a surplus?
We collected all our revenues, we didn't,
Yeah, the way MnDOT calculated their payment to us during COVID was it was a net number. So they said, what are your expenses, what are your revenues, we'll make you whole at 100%. That's why some systems went fare-free, because during COVID, they were still gonna get made whole. We did not, we continued to collect fares, and I think that's what's skewing this partly, because our revenues are so much higher than predicted.
Thanks, Randy.
anybody else? Anyone? You guys want to add anything, or move on then? Item 7, we have Kevin Percy with Blue Sky Transit Jefferson Lines. Welcome. I assume you're here.
I'm here, so coming up to the podium.
Okay.
Thank you again, Kevin Percy with Blue Sky Transit, and I want to thank the committee for allowing me to be here. I'll keep it short and sweet. We've just passed kind of our 1 year with the contract, and I just thought with Andy retiring to the tour, PGA Tour, that I could come up and spend time with him, say hi, and then also just give a few minutes here with the committee since you had your meeting today. So I just wanted to cover a couple of things real quick, and then I'll answer any questions you may have. So when we looked at, when we started this program, we had several goals that we wanted to make sure that we hit. First and foremost is that we hired all the previous drivers and dispatchers that were with the previous vendor. We did that. And to this date, we are almost 98% still staffed that way. So we pretty much have the same staff here locally. On top of that, we've given them 2 raises in the year to bring them up to a very fair wage here locally. So we feel really good about that, taking care of the driver base. And I think that's part of one of the reasons, obviously, we're able to keep the driver base is we're taking care of them. We also, one of our goals was to add a full-time dedicated manager, Jenna, who we did right away within a few 45 days. She's doing a great job and has really stepped up and helped the operation run the way it has. So we're very excited to have hired her, and she's doing a great job. We also updated the facility at Northern Pacific. We took it over from the previous vendor. There are some things that we needed to change. The driver lounge looks really nice now, good fresh coffee, a lot of other factors that we think really benefit the driver base so that they can feel welcome. In addition, we've had some barbecues with them and some other events that we feel, again, is a key component of employee engagement. We also did several training sessions as soon as we came on board with the driver base, including ADA and some other safety training, and we'll continue to do that as we have the needs to. I think one of our next ones will probably be de-escalation. We see a lot more challenges, both where I'm from down in Minneapolis with our Jefferson Lines business, but also a little bit up here. It's just managing some of the stresses that are going on with the passengers and our own drivers and how they can handle and de-escalate situations, because we're just seeing a lot more in the transit space, and I'm sure you hear that with stuff that's going on at Metro Transit in the cities. We're just not seeing behavior like we've seen here in the past 6 to 9 months. So, and then again, I think we focused really on customer service and providing on-time performance with the group, and really to help drive passenger count, which, from what I understand and talking to Andy, we're exceeding the budget right now for passenger counts. So we're really excited about that and want to continue that as a goal to us. So yeah, I think those are, again, as I mentioned, kind of the goals that we had. Any questions I can answer for the group?
Anybody?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say thank you for what you have been doing. It's nice to hear that, nice for our drivers to feel comfortable.
Yeah, thank you. We're happy to have the group we have. They're doing a great job, and so we're excited.
You're a new face to us, are you not?
No, I was here last year with the group when we won the contract. So
Okay, the
yeah.
very first.
Correct.
And
Yep,
then there was somebody else?
Yes, Tom Temke was with
Right,
us. Is
okay.
correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
And then you have somebody then assigned, and that's Jenna?
Jenna, yep,
Okay,
she's
great.
full-time, and she works down both at our Northern Pacific place, but also currently today she's dispatching.
Okay,
So
fabulous. Anybody else?
Chair, this
Yes.
is Tad. I had a question. So I remember when we first brought you on, you talked about the employee engagement.
Yep.
And it sounds like that's going well. You mentioned several things that you've done. And, you know, I think the idea at the time, and probably still is that would translate into, you know, increased ridership, you know, better relations between the drivers and the passengers.
Yep.
You mentioned the passenger counts are up. Do we know to the tune of what? And maybe that's.
I'll let,
is that
I
gonna
think
come
that's
later?
coming later. Crystal?
Wait,
The passenger count, are you gonna talk about that later?
Part of our discussion.
Okay,
Yep, so you'll see
Thank
that,
you.
yep.
that was in our packet, those
all right,
numbers.
Yep.
all right,
Yep.
thank you then.
Anybody else for
Mr. Chair, if
Yep.
I may ask a question.
bet, Nathan.
I just pick your brain a little bit.
Sure.
You have some metro operations as well. Is there anything that you think that we should be aware of up here in Crow Wing County as it pertains to transportation? Just things that you think maybe should be on our radar?
So one of the things that I've talked to Annie and Crystal about is, I think, looking at different vehicles. I will tell you that getting a bus today is extremely, extremely difficult. It's going to continue to be difficult. I think your next bus, which was, I think, probably 2020, you may see in 2 years. So maybe looking at potentially vans as an option, where you can have probably a little bit more vendor options for both the vans, but also maybe maintenance costs will be lower. You know, there's some things you have to factor in, of course, because of size and the amount of people you have, but we run van service down in Mankato, a 12-person van with a wheelchair lift, and for airport shuttle and over to Rochester. So we know it works, and it's an option. I also think it allows for non-CDL driver options too, which again is going to continue to be a struggle. It is really, really difficult to find CDL drivers. You get the Targets and the Walmarts giving them $120,000 a year plus benefits. It's getting more and more challenging. So finding different options from a vehicle that allows both parts and just getting them, and then also allowing you to have a different employee that doesn't have to have a CDL would probably be something that I would look to the city and the, TAC to be talking about. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Andy, we can't run those in our system, can we?
The vans?
The van. We have to have these type of buses, don't we? According to the state? Federal?
In order to be in public transit, the vehicle needs to be ADA accessible. Vans, they are making vans with wheelchair lifts in them now.
Okay,
We also, if you recall, when Pine River came on board, they had a 300 series bus, which Jeff Halstetter and I, we sold it to try to get the fleet matched as a 400 series. But a 300 series bus, I don't know if they're any more available or not. We're being told that we're looking out, 2-3 years before we see our next bus. It's in the packet, our 2020 bus. We did receive back in June, I believe. But our 2021 bus and 2022 bus, even though the grant applications have been submitted and the councils said, yes, go ahead and get them, we're not going to see those buses for a couple more years. What that means locally is, number one, we got to stay on top of maintenance. But number two, our maintenance costs may creep up over time, which is an operating expense, not a capital expense. So it's going to get interesting here in a couple of years. Thankfully, our fleet right now, with the addition of new buses, we're at 11 instead of 10. I've already posed the question whether they're going to force us to retire a bus. And they're like, you might need that bus. I'm thinking, yeah, we might need that bus. But another thing happening here is during COVID and even continuing today when council approved running at reduced capacity, we are still running one bus short. Our ridership continues to climb, and with the 8 buses on the road during peak, we are still managing our growing ridership without the addition of that 9th bus. So we're saving expense, and more importantly, we're saving miles on a bus that we're gonna have to run around for 2-3 years before we see another one.
Mr. Percy, then, with the buses you're speaking of, they fall in line with our particular program we're operating here as far as you know?
That's a great question. I don't know. I do think, again, given the circumstances, that even the state would have to really look hard at this. They're aware of it. We have the same problems on our own situation with Jefferson, which also gets grant money through the state.
Right.
So they're well aware of the situation, both with parts and with just generally new buses. So the state may have to make some amendments to what the situation is, given how hard it is to get vehicles. But again, they need to be ADA, and they are.
Okay.
So, as I know, we have our own 12-seat passenger buses, and they are ADA.
Anybody want to ask any more questions here?
May I ask a
You bet.
question?
Yep.
I know with the 12 passenger, I have a CDL, I have a Class A.
Yeah.
And I also have a passenger endorsement. So I'm just asking, with the 12 passenger, I know they have to have a passenger endorsement on their license in order to haul 12.
Correct.
Okay. So is that still gonna hinder the CDL?
They won't need the CDL.
They just have to get the passenger?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know what the laws were now.
Yep.
We're DOT too.
Yeah.
So, and we usually try to carry to make sure that our guys have fill out the books.
Yep.
I'm not trying to pick on you. Is your mic picking up there?
I
I
don't
think,
know.
I think, try pushing that. No,
My light's on now. Sorry.
That's okay.
it's nice that your light's
I
on.
asked
Good.
earlier, but, okay. We're full tilt boogie now on the mic, okay. Does anybody have anything else for Andy or Mr. Percy here?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I do.
Mary.
Not necessarily for this gentleman, but for a comment that Andy made relative to could possibly use an 8th bus. I think the real question is, how many passengers are in these buses? I'm pretty sure we've all been in the cities or seen it on TV of the buses there running around, or the light rail with one person and so on. I've actually seen that in our buses here, as I'm sure all of you have. So, is it really cost effective to have an extra bus or even talk about it, maybe for 1 or 2 passengers? A few months ago, we discussed looking at some options for this money. We really never did it, but I think it would be a relative thing to do, and I think it would be, I think it would be sensible. I just can't see another bus to run around with 1 or 2 people. And I'm an old lady with a lot of time on my hands, and I have a very cost-effective car. And so I do run around a lot, and I do see those buses. And it is not at all uncommon to see a bus with 1 person in. What is uncommon is to see a full bus. This is a committee has never really discussed this seriously, and I think we do the taxpayers a great disservice when we won't even address it.
Okay, anybody else?
If I could just talk to a couple of points to help there. When we talk about an extra bus, we're contracted with the state for service hours. So it's not an extra bus, meaning we're not putting an additional bus on the road. It's that we have an option when we have breakdowns, we have something else we can put into service. The idea of a small bus, we have this thing up in Pine River. They get maybe 5 passengers a day. That program could actually use a van and get away with it. Within the community, yes, there are periods where our buses are empty, but I believe Crystal just ran the performance indices, and we're at 2.99 passengers per hour right now? 2.99. So overall, we're at 2.99 passengers per hour that we're running. Some of the buses will have what I call taxi trips, meaning it's a direct flight. We got 1 person, but then we've got other buses that will collect 5, 6 people, bring them out to Walmart, or we've got the St. Francis that comes in with a full bus, or a daycare that has we have to put them in the big bus because it's more than 20 passengers. So it's hit or miss on which bus we're looking at, but overall we're running at almost 3 passengers per hour on our performance. I don't know if that answered any of your questions.
Thank you, Andy. I hear you.
Okay.
Doesn't change my mind, but I hear you.
No. I don't want to change your mind. I just want everybody to understand.
Okay, we'll move on to number 8 and have the introduction of our city engineer, Jesse Dean, sorry.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee. I'm really pleased to meet you all and be part of the transit system over here. And I just recently came up here at the beginning of August from the city of Marshall, where I was the assistant city engineer there. I had some experience and exposure to the transit system down that way with UCAP. I served on that transit or transportation advisory committee in that area, so I had a little bit of experience and exposure to it from that perspective. However, fundamentally, that system's quite a bit different than the system here. So it's been a new experience, and it's been fun for me to learn, and I intend to continue to leverage a lot of the staff here to help me learn more about the system that we have here, because it is quite a bit different than I'm used to. So, but it is a really great service, and I'm really happy that it's falling under the Public Works Department, that we can continue to improve it. Unfortunately, Andy's going to be leaving us, so I won't be able to leverage as much of his time and his knowledge, but again, I intend to spend a lot of time getting to know more of the committee and more of the staff, and understanding the ins and outs of the entire transit system that we have here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Den? I'm sorry.
Welcome.
Yep,
Thank you.
we're good? Move on. We have to accept the retirement transit coordinator, Andy Stone. However, I don't know if that has to be formally done, because the council's already done that, and we'll just be doing
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
it's just an acknowledgement.
Right.
Instead of an accept, because
Okay.
as you said, the council's already accepted and approved. We just wanted to acknowledge Andy's 8 years of very hard and dedicated work with the city of Brainerd and public transit.
yes.
Thank you. And to speak to the TAC, I mean, some of you I've worked with many years, some of you recent additions, but I'm thankful for such a knowledgeable crew and the different opinions that are expressed and the ability to debate and come to consensus on agreements. That is, I appreciate that because there's a lot of places in this world where that doesn't happen. So thank you all for the opportunity that I've had to work with a Transportation Advisory Committee. You know, looking back 8 years, I walked into a office full of paper. You know, now we're paperless. We have buses, we have riders, we, you know, have support from the community and the elected officials and city staff. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity I've had.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say congratulations on retirement. It's fantastic, and it's been a pleasure to work with you in the various positions I've held, so thank you very much.
And I'd like to echo that, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Andy, and yeah, we've come a long way on a lot of things, and we thank you for it.
Mr. Chair, I would as well just like to say a thank you to Andy. So Andy, thank you. I know you came to us from the private sector, so you brought kind of a private sector mindset, you know, all those years ago. And so just thank you for your dedicated service. I know from my day job too, I know we work with the RTCC. You work closely with us on that, and you brought a lot of experience and knowledge to that group as well that I think has benefited the city as well as the other transit, the 5311s throughout the entire region as well. So thank you.
Yeah, and I do recall you had won an award from the state of Minnesota just 3-4 years ago, was that, for exceeding your performance? And I know over the last number of years, you have definitely earned my respect at what you do. I appreciate everything you've done, Andy. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We have unfinished business, number 10. Discussion on the update of the third-party contract, cost evaluation and future projection memo and current ridership. Would you like to take that, Andy? Or are you out the door retired already?
Yeah, I'll have to pass the buck on this one. No, I'll cover this. I know that when the current contractor was selected, there was major concern about if we could pay for it, quite frankly. So a lot of work went into projecting our ridership and making sure that we'd have enough rides and fares to covering it. This memo that was written refers to that first projection. The important thing that I want to mention is that the transit system has currently provided, well, first of all, last year we met our projections on ridership, and from the finances, we were able to save some money. This year, we're currently at 27,000 rides in the first 6 months, so that's approximately 54 is the projection, times 2 right now. And as I mentioned earlier, number one, that's higher than our projected numbers. But secondly, with that higher ridership, we have higher revenues again. So we're well on track to recouping our ridership. It's helpful that we have our current contractor who's trying to present service on the street, you know, customer service. The ridership expects nothing less, and we're trying to appease them with their trip requests and times and whatever needs they have within the confines of our policy. New customers as well. The Crystal here has taken marketing to levels I never imagined. Being part of the younger generation and the social media, we actually have postings on Facebook. Maybe I should let you talk about all this because you do a lot.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Thank you, Andy. Yes, so in the third paragraph of that memo, I just talked about all the marketing pushes that we've been doing over the last year. At the beginning of the year, we did, with the help of our IT department, update our web page on the City of Brainerd's website. So if you go to transit, you will see a much more usable web page. Visibly, it's more pleasing and attractive. We have a slideshow of our buses, and even some of the, there's some pictures there from the Crow Wing County Historical Site from older transportation pictures, such as, I mean, Brainerd has had ferries and obviously trains, and we've had electric trolley cars, so all those things are on there just to attract our riders, and it's also well organized, so you can find our fare structure and our schedules and things like that. It also matches all the rest of Public Works web pages now. They all match, so you can read each web page the same. You can find everything the same, policy here, policy there. It's in the same spot. After the first of the year, then we went into social media outreaches, and we're on Facebook and Instagram weekly, bi-weekly. We have reoccurring posts that we do. A lot of them will be, you know, here's a fun place to ride, or something about how we're equitable, or I hope that you all follow our Facebook page and Instagram page and like the posts and share the posts, because the more presence we can have out there, the better for everybody, to get our ridership up even further. And we have had some good comments on that. It's helped. There's a bicycle push that we did to tell everybody that all our buses have bike racks on them, and we've actually had people contacting us to inquire more about that, asking us how far up the Paul Bunyan Trail we can get them to drop them off so they can ride their bike all the way back to Brainerd again. So that was nice to hear. I'd say the last thing that that was exciting and helpful was we put the bus, our brand new bus, in the 4th of July parade, the Independence Day festivities for the city of Brainerd. That was a big hit. We had a lot of attention there, and the staff had a lot of fun as well. So it's all in all is to help our ridership and show the community that we're a part of it.
And if I can add into that, Crystal and I have quick talked about it, and I know Crystal's kind of prepared a draft marketing plan for kind of what we want to do for a structure for marketing the transit system and trying to continue to build on what we've already done. Unfortunately, I haven't had a really good chance to get through it, so I'm looking forward to some more conversations and review, but we want to get a kind of more formal marketing plan to be brought before the committee here so that you guys are able to see and act on kind of what we're thinking for the future for marketing with the transit system.
Okay. I heard from a couple of people that were parade watchers, and as the bus would go by, there was several people around them thanking, you know, just kind of shouting out, thanks, we like your service. It was good to hear that. So it was encouraging that I got that feedback. So anybody have any questions about this ridership and third-party contractor, all this listed on our agenda item here?
Mr. Chair, if I could make one more comment. It was Jenna, your seated manager, who drove the bus in the fair. So the city does have support from our third-party contractor assisting where they can, so we appreciate that.
Nice, very nice. Anybody?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Tad. So it says the 2021 projected ridership was 24,000, but you say we're well above that currently at 44, was it? And can you,
The projected ridership was, the 2021 projected ridership was 24,648. The actual 21 ridership was 44,506. So that was in 2021. As we were coming out of COVID, we saw 8% growth, and that was what our projections were based on, but it came back faster than 8% up until September, when our rides kind of peaked for last year. This year, our projected number is 9,000 less than the 54. So that's 43,000? No, 45,000. 45,000. I don't see that in there, but I remember it was 9,000. We're going to beat it by.
Is that good?
The last paragraph here is kind of important. I mentioned earlier that some systems last year went fare-free, the way MnDOT did their math. This year, there were enough systems that argued and complained, me being one of them, that this wasn't quite fair. This year, our expenses are 100%, and those who are charging fares get to keep it. So it's no longer a net match, it's 100% expense, and we're pocketing all of our fares. So our reserve account should build up this year. Because of that, I would not suggest a fare increase at this point. Just because I'm going to retire, I'd like everybody to understand this, and I don't expect to change anybody's mind, but I came across a document that was from the 80s, and it said the city of Brainerd has had a bus service since 1971. That's 51 years. I knew it was 30 plus. I did not know it was 50 years. So the city's got a proud tradition of having a bus. Just like Crystal said, she's got a slideshow in there of all the different programs the city has had. The most interesting piece of information I gleaned from that piece of paper was that the fare in the 80s was $1.
Oh, wow.
Our fare today is $1.25. I mean, that's all I have to say.
Oh, yeah, but, oh, that's good,
Just keep that in the back of your mind.
that's good.
Yeah, when I started riding in '93, the fare was $1. You had a discount if you called in at least 2 hours in advance. And if you were a senior, I think it was 55 or older, you had a 25-cent discount. So you could actually ride for 50 cents if you complied. It was kind of a nightmare to keep track of all that, but they managed to do it without route match, surprisingly. And so, but yeah, it was, and of course, people would make sure they called in at least 2 hours to get that 25-cent discount, 2 hours in advance. That was a same-day call, so. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, if I can expand on that, I know we're talking a little bit of financials. We're still working on our budgets and stuff like that, and we did just recently get some information that MnDOT gave us their agreement for our budget for next year, and it does not cover 100% this time. They would allow us an extra 2% increase on operating costs. From what we budgeted, we were a little bit over that. It was about $195,000 that they've said that they will not cover because it is over the 2% increase in operating costs. So that is something that we're still looking at. We haven't finished anything yet with that budget, but it is something we're looking at, and just to make sure that we're going to be solvent in this and make sure we can still operate, because obviously everybody's felt a little bit of a pinch with looking at next year's budgets, knowing inflation. So there's going to be a lot of concern about how are we going to be able to meet that demand if MnDOT will not match the entire budget. So it is something we're still looking at.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
May I?
Yep.
I got a question, Jesse or Andy. When you said that they weren't gonna match us 100%, I thought we always had an 85% that the state gave us. Where did the 100% come from, or what are we talking about here?
In 2020, 2021, we had a 2-year operating agreement, but that's when the COVID funds hit. So that's where the 100% funding came from. The state cannot continue that without the federal money, so they have a phased approach back into getting back to our 85-15. This year, the 2021 budget is different, or I'm sorry, the 2022 budget is different from the 21, and it's also different from the next year's budget, 2023. So it's gonna phase in. That's where these numbers start to change, and that's why I say keep that dollar in the back of your mind, because there is some room there, if necessary, to have a minor fare increase.
Then, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, why does people expect that it wouldn't go back to what we had previously, that we didn't have the 85-15? If the 100% was for COVID, we're out of COVID, why wouldn't it automatically go back to what we had before?
I can't answer that.
Okay, all right, I just thought, well, maybe I'm a little flighty. Okay,
There are a lot of, I can't
okay, that's
answer
okay,
that.
no, that's okay.
I think what might be happening, and this is all speculation, but your question is valid in the sense that if you look at that spreadsheet where you look at the numbers pre-March 2020, and in March they go boom, they drop out, and they start picking up as you get later into 2020 and then 2021. And you'll see that total ridership for each month. But they're not recovering, and I think maybe that's what the state was trying to do, is are we gonna get a full recovery of all our ridership? I guess we don't know. And it doesn't appear, we were slowly declining year after year prior to that, 2020. You know, if you look at from 16, 17, 18, 19, the annual rides in Brainerd, monthly rides, I just looked at those, they start to kind of decline. But if the state was thinking of helping out transit in these rural communities, maybe that's what they're thinking. I'm only speculating.
Okay.
But that's kind of what makes sense to me, to kind of wean us off that coverage that we've been getting. Would that be a fair way to say that? They're weaning us off of it, perhaps?
That sounds rational to me, but this group in this city are closer to transit than some other communities. And I think the other communities, and again, I'm only
Okay.
guessing, they want it for nothing. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's a rhetorical question, I guess, from the sounds of it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then we have the new business. The A under that is approved Crow Wing County fuel agreement. If everybody got a chance to read that memo, I think it's pretty clear what's going on. And it looks as if I believe we have a better rate going through the county than we do at the pump retail, correct?
Can I speak to this,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
I'm asking you.
Yeah, first of all, I should have proofread my own writing. It says, "This agreement continues to be the same as years past." Well, no, it's not the same. I just want to make that clear. We had an opportunity to buy fuel on the county's pumps at a discounted rate because they buy in such volume. And for years, we were saving, 50, 60 cents a gallon. Over the last year, I'm aware of a few instances where they had to replace pumps, tanks, and they had to update for compliance reasons. These capital costs ate into their budget, And so they went to all their customers, including Brainerd, and says, we're gonna have to add a little bit to help us recover these costs. So they're asking for 10% above what their discounted rate was. In reality, what that means to us, and I'll make this simple, rather than save 50 cents a gallon, we're gonna save a quarter. We're still saving money. It's not as much as we'd like, but the county is our partner in this thing, and I think we should just work together. We have a few options, though. One, we could say, okay, we'll agree to this. They're already billing for it. So we could say no, wait and see what happens, see how long they bill us. Maybe at some point they'll say, you're not gonna sign this, we don't want you. We could just say, we're not gonna sign it and walk away and get gas at local stations, but we'll be paying the full amount. Or one of us could actually go before the board and say, look, we're your partner. Why do you need 10% from us? That's what I would recommend in the next month is, yeah, let's agree to this for right now, but I would go to the board and say, can we do anything about this? Because they are a partner in this program. Does that help? 4 choices.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I understood that the fuel is part of the contract. In other words, the holder of the contract is responsible for the fuel.
I can't hear you, Mary.
I think this is on.
No, I don't think it is.
Oh,
There you go.
now can you hear me? I understood that the fuel cost was part of the contract.
Fuel is 100% reimbursable by the city. So in the past, and I'll go way back, years ago, we used to fuel on-site at Reichert's, and they would bill us on a monthly basis for the fuel used. With PA, everything went out to local community stores, and that's when we had a discussion here about the opportunity to go to the county, and I went and asked, sure enough, we're fueling right next to Nathan's building there. I don't know what it's called, there's a name on that building. It never made sense to me.
Central Services Building,
Yes, thank you.
that is not in the center of Crow Wing County.
Central Service. So bottom line, the city is paying for all these maintenance, fuel. It's a pass-through. We ask them to fuel the buses, but ultimately the city is paying for it, and it becomes an eligible expense to the MnDOT grant agreement. So they buy the fuel up front, we pay them, we submit it to the state as an expense on our grant, and then quarterly they give us grant payments. Where we buy the fuel is, number one, I always want to save money. So if we can get the fuel cheaper by negotiating with county or negotiating with a chain of stores, these guys, as a third-party contractor, will fuel how we ask. They don't have a local tank like another third-party contractor may have had their own tank. So they're buying fuel on fuel cards, and we get documentation of gallons and price on a monthly basis with their invoice. Crow Wing County gives us the same information, but it doesn't go through their hands. It comes directly to us because we're the participant. I think it's cleaner that way because, again, we are part of the county program, and that's how I set it up. We could ask the county to bill Jefferson, but they would just simply add it onto their bill and then send it to us for payment, and we'd pay them and turn it into the state.
Now, I'm still not understanding it. You're telling me that fuel costs are not included in the contract. When someone bids on the contract, the fuel is outside of that and is the responsibility of the city of Brainerd?
Everything is the responsibility of the city of Brainerd. Fuel, maintenance, wages.
But that's why you have a contract. I mean, and those things are, I believe, identified in the, I'm trying to figure out how much of this we really have to absorb. They have a contract extremely high, as you all know, I voted against it, would again. Extremely $1 million over a previous bidder. Now, are you telling me, Andy, in plain English, that on top of that, we have to absorb the additional fuel cost? Yes
That's
or
what
no?
you agreed to in the specifications.
It's been that way all along.
Are we sure?
It's been that.
Mr. Chair,
Screwed.
this is Tad. So I think,
Mr.
Andy,
Erickson.
is this correct that the county, we've got this agreement with the county to get fuel at reduced price based on efficiency, because on bulk. But they've added a 10%,
Correct.
essentially an administrative fee.
Administrative fee, and it's helping cover their capital
And
costs.
is that the only difference from
Yes,
previous year's
that's the
contract?
difference. So in
And-
other words, I've been getting a monthly bill from the county out at the airport where the fleet department is that manages the fuel program. But the fuel, we actually buy locally at the Central Services Building, which is where the sheriff's fuel. So all of the gas buses, I've been taking care of. All of the diesel buses, they've been going to different local stores, getting the buses fueled on a vendor card, I don't know what you call it, a fleet card. And then I get that bill with all the detail to evaluate.
So,
Mr. Stone, fuel is an operational cost, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and you have talked to us in the past, when fuel prices are going up, you are not sure if you can get the
If it's part of the contract.
excuse me?
It's part of the I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I can't, I'm sorry. When you have an operational cost, we get a percentage of, what, 80 or 85 reimbursed from the state, correct? I forget. Is it-
depending on the year, correct.
Depending on the year, okay. So this has been that way ever since I've been on this committee. We've always paid for the fuel. So this is not new, it shouldn't be new to any of us. And when we have our I think if you save money up front, our local share is lower, correct?
Correct.
That's what he's talking about here. We are getting fuel at a discount rate from the county, even though they're including 10% based on their administrative costs with new pumps and the new facilities they're using to pay for that. But our still cost at the pump is lower going through the county. So when we submit our total amount of fuel costs to the state, we get reimbursed. We're not paying as much by buying it from the county. Is that a fair
Correct.
statement? Okay. Is there, I guess the surprise here is kind of surprising to me that we're paying for fuel. It's been that way for as long as I can remember, so,
Mr.
yes, go ahead, Jim.
And Mr. Chair, I do believe these were identified as pass-throughs. Fuel was like a pass,
Yeah.
you use a pass-through, and maintenance was a pass-through.
Correct.
And so that's how I remember our contracts going. And part of the city's contract was that we would do these pass-through
Correct.
costs. Okay.
yep, so just to clarify, the state does pick up 85% of that tab. The other 15% typically would be covered through those fares that are collected.
The city picks up,
Right.
yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
may I
Mr.
ask a
Bertram.
question to Andy, Crystal, or Jesse, I guess? Has anyone gone to Joe Luxick and tried to negotiate the 10% at all?
Not yet. You know, I wanted it to come to you guys first. Joe Lusick, who is the fleet manager at the county, he asked for this to get signed as soon as possible. So I'd like it to go to council, and once it's signed, I still think there's back-end work that staff can do to try to ask if the county could have a little lenience, or perhaps even renegotiate it. I don't think, again, my initial statement is we're still gonna save money, just not as much.
Well, at what point does the county say, okay, our facilities are paid for? I mean, we've gotten an investment, an additional from the city of Brainerd, the transit service, which is not just for us, it's also from the county. But at what point do we say, Okay, that 10% additional beyond what it was a certain percentage before, it's now 10. What is it, like 3% before, I believe? Prior to this new contract?
Prior to this agreement, there was no
Additional?
surcharge.
There was no surcharge?
Nope.
I always thought they had a
Absolutely
surcharge.
none. So we've enjoyed
Okay,
the benefit of the county's equipment and staff work for a few years without any benefit from us.
okay.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
exactly, at cost.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we do approve the Crow Wing County's customer fuel sales agreement that is presented to us. And I would ask that if the staff sometime go talk to the county board and see if we can get some negotiations. You know,
We have a
25
motion by Lambert to approve the fuel agreement by Crow Wing County. Is there a second?
Mr.
Second,
Chair,
Erickson.
is,
Second by Mr. Erickson.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Was that you?
Yeah, this is Nathan. I think we're in the discussion part or getting to it, correct?
I'm sorry?
Are we in the discussion part?
There's been a motion and a second, and he's asking for in discussion.
Yep, that's correct.
I'm not sure, am I allowed to vote on this matter, being an employee of Crow Wing County, or do I need to abstain? Just throwing it out there.
You don't have a benefit that I can see. I mean, one.
Not really, but I thought I should pose the question. Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I understood the motion was simply to go into the agreement.
yep.
The motion did not say anything about negotiating.
No, and I figured that would be the motion, and then we can talk
You'd have
about
to-
that afterwards.
No, my motion was that,
Yeah,
to do that, and then also direct staff to talk to the Crow Wing County Board.
then to
Okay.
direct staff to talk to the county representatives to see if they can negotiate the 10%. My apologies.
No,
Is that a
not,
second then for you, Mr. Erickson?
no,
I think Jan has her hand up, so
Okay.
maybe
No,
if we
it's
get
not-
clarification on the motion and then.
yes.
Go ahead.
It was nothing to do about negotiation. What I'm saying, asking is that we approve the contract and get that, but also ask staff to go to the county board, like Andy had mentioned, and just talk to them and not, I didn't say anything about negotiation, but go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
might I offer an amendment that Andy would not necessarily go to the county board, but go to the appropriate county staff? I think you had mentioned Joe is handling this.
I agree. Okay.
Okay, and then with that, I would second.
Okay, so the motion is to accept the agreement and then proceed with negotiating with appropriate county representatives to talk about the 10% and see if they can negotiate that. Is that fair with everybody?
Well,
Everybody motion, seconder?
no,
Okay.
I just
explain
want
the motion.
I just want the negotiation part to be removed. I would direct staff to go talk to the person involved and go from there. And then you could bring back to us if there's any possibility, and then we can further, yes.
Point of question, just understanding, if I may.
1 second. We have a motion to just accept the agreement and just go talk to staff, nothing about negotiating, and just come back to us and see what they think. That's my understanding of your motion.
Right, I don't, yes, it'll go, I just do it,
Seconder?
Second, correct.
Okay, that's good then. Clarification?
Andy.
You want to ask a question, Andy?
Just clarification, I would like this to get to the council, so is the motion going to move this up the
Yes.
ladder? Okay.
Yes.
Yep, it's to accept the agreement in front of us.
Okay.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, say aye. Motion carries. Update regarding acting transit coordinator. Follow-up from August 15th city council meeting. Who's going to be in that?
Good afternoon, Chair. Jesse, I'll take care of this item really quick. So I just wanted to update the committee here with Andy's retirement coming up on Monday. Myself and staff recommended to the council to move forward with just appointing Krista as the acting transit coordinator. With Andy leaving, obviously we need somebody to fill that role, and we're hoping that Crystal can help us fill that role, at least in the interim for now. it'll give us a time, at least me, for getting adjusted into the position, getting to observe the transit department a little bit more, understand it a lot more, and then come forward with a more formal and permanent recommendation in the coming months. But I didn't feel comfortable doing that formal, permanent recommendation without really getting to know the system better, getting to know Crystal better. So that's kind of what I expressed to the council on August 15th, is just allowing me some additional time to evaluate.
Thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Pass the torch.
You still have 1 day left.
Oh,
Okay, we have staff reports, but there's nothing under that. Is that, anybody want to report anything other than what we've done already?
well, there's, the last page is a memo, just, you know me, I want to give everybody too much information. We already mentioned this, the 2020 capital grant bus number 201 was received in June. This is our 4th gasoline bus in the fleet. So as we continue to add gasoline buses, those are the ones we fuel at the county. It's just, it's here, right down the road. And the gas buses are less I mean, you know the whole story, gas versus diesel, I'll skip that. 2021 and 2022 capital grant buses will likely not be here until 2025 due to ongoing manufacturing delays. The whole host of reasons why this is happening, but it's impacting the entire transit industry nationwide. We'll just struggle through it. Lastly, everybody's favorite topic, route match. About a year ago, route match actually sold to Uber. Well, Uber just sold route match again to Modaxo's TripSpark. So route match, I don't know if it's hot potato or if it's valuable, or I don't know what the story is, but it's hopping around between owners right now. It's a viable program. I've always been a proponent of it. The issues we've had in the past had to surround support. You know, quite frankly, I don't think we got the support we needed from Uber, but so far, Crystal's comments on TripSpark, as far as their customer service, is positive. A fair statement? Yes. Yeah. So maybe this is a final resting place for route matches with TripSpark.
Anything else? Staff updates?
Mr. Chair, this
Yeah.
is Crystal.
Yep.
I have a couple updates. One, just going off Andy's part there on route match, we have tablets coming. We ordered, back in May, we ordered 11 new tablets to replace our entire fleet of tablets. And it sounds like in 2 weeks, we will start receiving all of our pieces of the order, and they will be coming in and coming in. This time around, we do have IT fully involved and invested in assisting us to improve the management program with the devices, and hopefully that'll help us cut back on our downtimes with any technology issues. So that'll be plenty helpful. I also did want to add just a thank you to Andy, first of all, for all your help and assistance to me over the last 3 years, and for bringing me in and showing me everything that I've learned. And I'm excited for you on your success and your retirement. I know you really enjoy your family, and now you're going to have the opportunity to really dive into all your family fun and travels that you have, and it's exciting because I know that that's your number one thing that you're all about is family. I want to let the TAC know that I am very excited for this opportunity. I'm grateful as well to be able to be here to work with not only public transit, I do enjoy it, but with our community, and then with the newly formed public works team. That's exciting too, because it's a whole new team now. It's not just transit. We have public works at the city of Brainerd, so I'm excited to be part of that. And I just plan on continuing keeping transit moving forward while I have this opportunity to work with Jesse and everything. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Crystal. Has it been a full 2 years now, or how long?
3 years.
3?
Mr. Chair.
Oh my gosh, time flies.
It does. It really
Wow.
does.
Okay, staff reports and, let's see, public forum. Anybody here for public forum? Nope. Okay. There is, what was the one thing? The route match, I understand they're gonna have the actual timer on the device, so the drivers won't have to look at their watch or timepiece to, check, is that correct? I heard a rumor? I forget it, I don't know.
Route match is, I don't know.
It's okay, you're struggling.
Route match is a bunch of different pieces that work together. So in other words, there's the actual software, there's the Amazon Web Services.
Does it have the
there's
timer on it
tablets.
or not?
Well,
I mean, I just
All
love
of-
asking. Is it,
all of these components need to work together.
Okay.
So the updates are staggered. So because we have old tablets, we haven't been able to take other advantages of the software or the communication or these other as soon as we get new tablets, there's about 7 other things that are going to be updated that are going to bring advances to the system. It's not necessarily an egg timer, Mr. Chair, but it is a timer that will calculate our weight for no-shows.
yep. That's all I asked.
Okay. Sorry.
It's gonna have a timer on. Wonderful. Gosh. I like the 8 timer would work though. Okay, I like that. Put one on each dash of the bus. Nobody for public forum? We had comments and questions from the committee members. Starting down here, Mr. Erickson, you want anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, I'm good, other than just to, again, reiterate, congratulations and thank you to Andy.
Okay, you betcha, Mr. Nathan Bertram.
I don't have any further comments other than a thank you to Andy as well.
Thank you. Mr. Stenberg? Thank you, okay. Jan?
No,
Okay.
no.
Lisa,
Lisa's first.
Oh, I'm sorry, oh, you are right next to me here. Sorry.
No, I don't have.
Okay, nothing? Okay. Jan?
I just want to say congratulations to everybody on the other lower bench. Thank you all.
Mary?
I'd like to echo that. Thank you.
Yes, fantastic. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. We have, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So move, Lambert.
Motion by Lambert, second by Stenberg. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
I'm afraid to see you. Every time I see you, you've got something to do.
I know.
Wow, that was just so random.
I'm so glad I'm going to be 68, Mary, because